After enduring the brutality of numerous wars across America, the elderly veteran, Joseph, longed for a peaceful refuge where he could escape the haunting memories of battle. His body bore the scars of years of conflict, and his spirit carried the weight of those dark days. Hoping to leave his troubled past behind, he moved to a quiet town surrounded by dense forests. The serenity of this secluded place, far removed from the chaos he once knew, promised him the chance to rebuild his life in peace. Joseph settled into a small, modest house, its surroundings lush with greenery. His only neighbor was Thomas, a young, charismatic man who lived nearby. Thomas's passion for horses was evident in the way he devoted his days to their care and companionship. Every morning, Thomas could be seen tending to his animals, his dedication reflecting a life lived in harmony with nature. One day, as Joseph watched Thomas leading his horses through the yard, he felt a spark of curiosity. Venturing closer, he introduced himself, and the two quickly bonded over their shared solitude and unspoken need for connection. Their friendship blossomed. Each evening, Joseph would recount stories of his time in the military, tales of courage, loss, and survival. Though filled with pain, his stories also revealed moments of triumph and resilience. Thomas listened with rapt attention, asking questions and absorbing the wisdom of a man who had endured the worst of humanity but remained kind and hopeful. For Joseph, these conversations were a form of therapy, allowing him to unburden his soul. For Thomas, they were a source of inspiration and admiration. As their bond grew, Joseph found himself increasingly drawn to Thomas's horses. He spent his mornings visiting them, feeding and petting the animals. Among the herd, one horse stood out, Silver. With a shimmering coat and a commanding presence, Silver captivated Joseph. An immediate bond formed between them, as if the horse understood Joseph's inner struggles. Sensing this unique connection, Thomas suggested that Joseph ride Silver. Initially hesitant due to his age, Joseph agreed after Thomas's encouragement. To both their surprise, Joseph rode with ease and confidence, as though the years had not dulled his skill. Riding Silver became a cherished daily ritual. Each morning, Joseph would saddle up and ride through the town, feeling the wind in his hair and the sun on his face. These rides brought him a profound sense of freedom and joy, a stark contrast to the burdens he had carried for so long. Silver seemed to mirror Joseph's emotions, responding with an understanding that deepened their bond. For the first time in years, Joseph felt alive and at peace. Thomas, meanwhile, took pride in witnessing Joseph's transformation. Their shared moments, caring for the horses, exchanging stories, and enjoying the beauty of nature, strengthened their friendship. Thomas admired Joseph's resilience, while Joseph appreciated Thomas's kindness and the sense of belonging he had found in their companionship. Through his connection with Thomas and Silver, Joseph discovered a renewed sense of purpose. The tranquility of the town, the joy of riding, and the warmth of friendship helped him heal in ways he hadn't thought possible. In this peaceful corner of the world, Joseph found not only solace, but also a profound sense of fulfillment. The simplicity of life, once elusive, became the foundation of a bond and a happiness that would endure for years to come. As time passed, the bond between Joseph and Thomas deepened. They found solace in each other's company, sharing stories, especially Joseph's tales of war, and enjoying tranquil mornings with Silver, Joseph's magnificent horse. This companionship became the foundation of a friendship rooted in understanding and respect. Thomas recognized how much Joseph cherished Silver, seeing the horse as a symbol of healing in his life. Thomas, always observant, noted how Silver brought joy and calm to Joseph, rejuvenating him despite his age and past scars. Silver was more than a pet. He was a lifeline for Joseph, giving him purpose each day. One afternoon, as the sun set, Thomas made a heartfelt decision. He would gift Silver to Joseph, a gesture reflecting his appreciation for their bond. Parting with Silver was not easy for Thomas. He understood the horse's significance to both both of them, but felt Joseph needed Silver more. The connection they shared was rare, and Thomas knew it was time to offer this meaningful gift. The following morning, as Joseph prepared for his ride, Thomas approached with a serious expression. Noticing the change, Joseph asked what was wrong. "Joseph," Thomas began gently, "I've decided that Silver should be yours, if you'll accept him. He's become part of your life, and I believe he's meant to stay with you." Joseph was momentarily stunned. The thought of receiving such a precious gift overwhelmed him. You want me to take him?" he stammered, incredulous. Thomas nodded, a smile breaking through. "Yes, I see how you and Silver connect. You understand each other in a way I never could. I want you to have him." Joseph's heart swelled with emotion. The idea of caring for Silver, who had already become a friend, filled him with gratitude. "Thomas, I don't know what to say. This is too much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I promise to take care of him." In that moment, their friendship deepened. It was now about trust, love, and selflessness. Thomas had given Joseph not just a horse, but the gift of companionship and healing. Joseph felt warmth in his chest, imagining mornings spent riding through quiet streets, Silver by his side. The two men shared a moment of silent understanding, knowing their bond had evolved into something unbreakable. From that day on, Joseph and Silver shared every morning. Joseph cared for Silver, brushing him and feeding him, now fully his. Silver became part of Joseph's family, a friend who aided his healing. Thomas found happiness in Joseph's joy. Although it was tough to part with Silver, witnessing Joseph's enrichment made it worthwhile. Their friendship continued, filled with shared moments, as Joseph expressed the joy of having Silver. Silver too seemed content, bonding with Joseph on their daily rides. It marked the beginning of a new chapter, brimming with love, friendship, and a deeper understanding of care. As the days passed, Joseph and Silver's bond deepened, becoming inseparable. Every morning, Joseph would take Silver for peaceful walks around the town. Silver had become more than just a horse. He was Joseph's closest companion, his source of comfort after years of hardship. Their silent connection spoke volumes, and Joseph cherished every moment spent with Silver. The quiet mornings and the gentle sound of Silver's hooves on the soft ground brought Joseph a sense of calm and healing, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. One afternoon, Joseph went to the market, as he often did, to buy a few items. While he was browsing the stalls, a group of loud motorcycle riders entered. They were brash and full of swagger, and for some reason, they decided to target Joseph. They shoved him around, laughing at his expense. Joseph, now older and no longer the soldier he had once been, stood his ground, but he couldn't fight back. He was too frail and tired to defend himself. He tried to ignore their mockery and move on, but their cruelty was painful. However, Silver was not about to stand by and watch his friends suffer. As soon as the motorcyclists began bullying Joseph, Silver's protective instincts kicked in. The horse strained against the rope, tethering him to a nearby post, whinnying loudly and desperately, trying to break free. He pounded the ground with his hooves, fueled by the desire to protect Joseph. Despite his best efforts, Silver couldn't reach Joseph in time. Joseph, hearing the horse's frantic attempts to help, felt a wave of sorrow. He couldn't defend himself, and he could hear Silver trying to protect him. But there was nothing he could do but walk away, his heart heavy with humiliation. In the days that followed, Silver couldn't forget what had happened. Whenever they passed the spot where the bullying had occurred, Silver would grow tense. His eyes would narrow, and his body would stiffen, as if remembering the injustice done to Joseph. It became clear to Joseph that Silver hadn't let the incident go. The horse's loyalty was unshakable, and he was determined to do something about it. 2 days later, as Joseph tended his garden, Silver suddenly broke free. With a burst of energy, the horse galloped toward the market, knowing exactly what he needed to do. He raced through the streets, determined to seek justice for the wrongs done to his beloved companion. When Silver arrived at the market, the motorcyclists were still there, laughing and chatting among themselves, unaware of the horse's approach. Without hesitation, Silver charged at their motorcycles, kicking and stomping them with all his fury. The bikes were knocked over, one by one, and damaged beyond repair. The motorcyclists were stunned when they came outside to find their bikes destroyed. They had no idea who or what was responsible, but it quickly became clear that someone or something had sent them a message. Satisfied with his actions, Silver turned and galloped back to Joseph's house. When Joseph saw the horse return, calm and composed, he felt a deep sense of pride. Silver had protected him in the only way he knew how. The motorcyclists never bothered Joseph or Silver again, having learned a lesson they would never admit. Joseph and Silver continued their quiet life, their bond stronger than ever. Their connection, built on mutual trust, love, and loyalty, was unbreakable, and nothing could ever sever it. After witnessing the motorcyclist's cruel behavior toward Joseph, Silver couldn't shake the memory of the injustice his beloved companion had suffered. The images of Joseph being shoved, mocked, and humiliated weighed heavily on his mind. For 2 long days, Silver paced restlessly around the yard, unable to find peace. His protective instincts burned fiercely, and he knew that the wrongs done to Joseph needed to be righted. One fateful day, Silver saw his chance. The motorcyclists, unaware of the fury they had ignited in the heart of a horse, entered the local market, laughing loudly as they went about their business. Silver, still consumed by his anger over the way they had treated Joseph, watched them carefully. This was the moment he had been waiting for. With a burst of energy, Silver galloped toward the market, determined to confront the people who had dared to bully his friend. As he approached, he saw the motorcyclists leaving the store, their laughter echoing in the air. Silver was swift and precise, charging toward the parked motorcycles. His hooves hit the ground with a rhythmic power as he used all of his strength and speed to close the distance. In an instant, Silver was upon the bikes, his sharp hooves crashing down on them with brutal force. He kicked and struck at the metal, his anger fueling each movement. The motorcyclists had no time to react. They barely saw Silver coming before the damage was done. Silver's hooves struck the bikes again and again, leaving dents and scratches in their once sleek surfaces. The loud sound of metal being pounded rang through the market as Silver vented his fury. He had no mercy. The motorcyclists, still caught off guard, stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. Their prized motorcycles, which they had been so proud of just moments ago, were now in pieces, damaged beyond repair. Silver didn't stop until he was certain the damage was done. Satisfied with his work, he swiftly turned and ran back toward Joseph's house, his heart pounding with a sense of justice. The motorcyclists, still in shock, stood in disbelief, staring at their destroyed bikes. They couldn't fathom how this had happened. Who had done this to them? Who had caused their precious machines to be reduced to wrecks? They looked around, but there was no one in sight who could explain the mystery. Silver, meanwhile, was already safely back at Joseph's side. He had done what he needed to do. He had avenged his friend's mistreatment, ensuring that the motorcyclists would think twice before ever bullying Joseph, or anyone else, again. Joseph, unaware of the events that had unfolded, noticed something different about Silver when he returned. The horse's body language spoke volumes. There was an air of satisfaction in the way Silver carried himself, a certain pride that wasn't there before. The motorcyclists, still scratching their heads, eventually realized that their bikes were completely ruined. The mystery of the damage had no easy explanation, and they were left to wonder who could have possibly done such a thing. They had been careless, arrogant, and cruel, but they had underestimated the bond between Joseph and Silver. Their misdeeds had caught up with them in the most unexpected way. In the days that followed, the motorcyclists brought their broken bikes to a repair shop, hoping to fix the damage, but the memory of their encounter with Silver stayed with them. The lesson was clear. There were consequences for treating people and animals poorly, and Silver had made sure that the consequences were felt. The motorcyclists would never forget the power of a loyal friend, even if they couldn't fully understand what had happened to their bikes. As for Silver, he had no regrets. He had protected Joseph in the best way he knew how. The bond between them was stronger than ever, and Silver knew that no matter what happened, he would always stand by Joseph's side, ready to defend him whenever it was needed. The motorcyclists had learned a hard lesson, and they wouldn't be making the same mistake again. Thanks to Silver, Joseph was safe, and that was all that mattered. The confrontation. The following day, the motorcyclists, realizing the damage done to their bikes by Silver, took them to a repair shop. After several hours, the bikes were somewhat restored, but their owners still felt the sting of their losses. They were in no mood to celebrate, yet their arrogance remained unchanged. Once repairs were complete, they walked back toward the center of town, muttering under their breath about their misfortune. As the group walked along the road, the leader of the motorcyclists, still brooding, barely noticed the fast-approaching car. Before he could react, the car struck him with tremendous force, throwing him to the ground, severely injured. His friends rushed to his side in panic, realizing the gravity of the situation. Their earlier pride had been replaced by desperate concern. Joseph, meanwhile, was returning from the outskirts of town with Silver. As he neared the scene, he noticed the commotion and slowed to assess what had happened. His gaze fell upon the injured motorcyclist, his tormentor, the very one who had mocked him days earlier. Despite the past, Joseph's instinct was not to seek revenge but to remain calm. He had learned that holding on to hate benefited no one, especially not himself. Joseph took a deep breath and looked at Silver, sensing his companion's thoughts. There was no room for bitterness. Instead, Joseph saw an opportunity for kindness. Without hesitation, he spurred Silver into action. "Silver," Joseph murmured softly, "we need to help him." Silver, without question, moved swiftly toward the group of motorcyclists. The friends were still panicked, struggling to comprehend the situation. Joseph approached them and calmly explained that he would help get their injured friend to the hospital. There was no time to lose, so Joseph guided Silver to lift the motorcyclist onto the horse's back and headed for the nearest hospital. The road to the hospital felt like an eternity, but neither Joseph nor Silver slowed. Time was of the essence, and they reached the hospital just in time. Silver carefully brought the motorcyclist to the entrance, where medical staff rushed to assist. Joseph's heart raced, knowing how critical the situation was. His mind drifted to the way he had been treated, but there was no trace of anger in his heart. What mattered was that the motorcyclist could still be saved. After a tense period of waiting, the doctors emerged, assuring Joseph that the motorcyclist had made it through the critical stage and was stable, though it would take time to recover. Joseph felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had done all he could, and now it was in the hands of the medical professionals. As the motorcyclist's friends gathered around, they expressed their gratitude toward Joseph. They had expected hostility, but instead they found kindness in the face of adversity. This experience humbled them, and they began to see Joseph in a new light, not as a victim, but as someone worthy of respect. Joseph, with Silver by his side, quietly left the hospital. The motorcyclists had learned a valuable lesson. Actions have consequences, and kindness is always the stronger choice. As Joseph walked back to his home, a sense of peace settled over him. There was no need for revenge or anger. He had risen above it. Life in the small town continued, with Joseph and Silver at its heart. The motorcyclists, though changed, would never forget the kindness they witnessed that day. In a world full of conflict, Joseph's actions reminded them that true strength lies not in anger, but in the ability to show compassion, even to those who have wronged us. The motorcyclist's regret. A few hours after the motorcyclist's rescue, the group of friends who had been with him rushed to the hospital, anxiously awaiting news. They had witnessed the accident, and fear gripped them since. Upon arrival, they immediately approached Joseph to find out if their friend had survived. Joseph, ever calm, explained how Silver had helped get the motorcyclist to the hospital in time, and the doctors assured him their friend was stable, though still recovering. The group of motorcyclists, their faces a mixture of relief and guilt, listened to Joseph. They knew they owed him more than just thanks, but words seemed inadequate. They were no longer the arrogant group that had mocked Joseph just days before. They had been humbled by the gravity of the situation, and how close they had come to losing one of their own. The leader, who had been the most aggressive towards Joseph, stood silently in the hallway, faced with the consequences of his past behavior. His mind raced with regret. What had mocking Joseph brought him? Nothing. But he had almost lost a life, someone who had shown nothing but kindness. As the minutes passed, the motorcyclists gathered their thoughts, their anger replaced with deep regret. The leader, once dismissive of Joseph, now realized the old man's strength lay in his kindness. Joseph had not only saved their friend, but had done so without judgment. The leader's heart weighed with guilt. He understood Joseph's lesson. True strength lies in compassion, even for those who wrong you. The motorcyclists approached Joseph, offering thanks, but words were insufficient. Their gratitude was clear in their eyes. They couldn't undo the past, but they could start fresh. They knew they had to make amends, not just for their leader's sake, but for their own growth. Joseph had shown them something more important than any road lesson: the power of kindness and taking responsibility. Joseph saw the sincerity in their eyes and nodded gently. He didn't need their thanks. For him, helping those in need was simply the right thing to do. But he could see the change in the motorcyclists, especially their leader. He knew they had learned a valuable lesson, one that would stay with them. As Joseph left the hospital, he felt a sense of peace. His heart was light, knowing he had helped not just physically, but had also impacted the motorcyclists' hearts. The change in them, though small, was a step in the right direction. And that, to Joseph, was more valuable than anything else. The leader, recovering in his hospital bed, reflected on his past arrogance. He realized Joseph had never been his enemy. The old man represented the person he wished to be: kind, understanding, and compassionate. It wasn't too late to change. He now knew that every choice mattered, and Joseph's kindness had helped him see that. Back in the town, Joseph continued his daily routine with Silver. He had always seen the good in people, even when they didn't deserve it, and that was enough. His bond with Silver remained strong, and together they moved forward, knowing that life was best lived with compassion and grace. Joseph understood that there would always be new opportunities to teach, help, and forgive. The small town had become more than just a retirement place for Joseph. It was a sanctuary where lessons were learned, and lives could change through acts of kindness. The motorcyclists, now on a new path, would carry those lessons with them, ensuring Joseph's legacy of strength and compassion would live on in their hearts. 2 months later, the motorcyclists returned to Joseph, but their approach had changed. The leader of the group stepped forward, his face sincere, offering a heartfelt apology. As he embraced Joseph, the old man felt the weight of the motorcyclist's remorse and the genuine transformation in him. This wasn't just an apology, it was a turning point. Silver, sensing the shift, stood quietly by, understanding the significance of the moment. The once rough and hostile motorcyclists now appeared humbled, their arrogance replaced by a genuine desire for peace. Laughter and conversation filled the air as the group shared warmth and camaraderie. For the first time, the motorcyclists saw Joseph not as an old man they had tormented, but as someone from whom they could learn, a figure of wisdom and compassion. Joseph, pleased with the change, happily shared his stories. He spoke of his time in the war, not only the battles and pain, but the moments of courage, hope, and survival. His voice, heavy with experience, also carried the peace he had found. The motorcyclists listened with deep respect, their earlier defiance gone. Thomas, who had always been Joseph's companion, joined them. He had grown to understand and admire Joseph, and now, seeing the motorcyclists in a new light, he participated in the conversation, sharing his own thoughts. The group's exchange was lively, yet sincere, as they discussed life, war, and peace. For Joseph, this was one of the happiest moments of his life. The motorcyclists were no longer enemies but friends, and he had become part of their lives, as they had become part of his. The days of loneliness seemed distant now, replaced by genuine connection. His bond with Thomas had only deepened, and the motorcyclists had become part of his chosen family. Silver, ever by Joseph's side, too seemed content. The horse had witnessed the transformation in the motorcyclists, just as Joseph had. Silver, who had endured so much with his owner, now stood peacefully in the warm breeze, a symbol of resilience and loyalty. As Joseph looked around at the gathering, Thomas, Silver, and the motorcyclists sharing stories and laughter, he felt immense gratitude. He had once believed his days of camaraderie were behind him, but life had shown him that new beginnings were possible, no matter how late they came. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the peaceful scene, Joseph felt grateful. Peace had come to him not through solitude, but through connections. He had given and received forgiveness, building a new chapter filled with love and companionship. The motorcyclists were forever changed by their encounter with Joseph. They had learned that true strength lies not in dominance, but in understanding and compassion. The leader, once a troublemaker, now admired Joseph, and the group understood they could change for the better. As the evening ended and everyone parted ways, Joseph walked back to his home with Silver, content. He had found not just new friends, but a true family, one forged through mutual respect and shared experiences. In that small town, surrounded by people who cared for him, Joseph had learned that it's never too late to start anew, and that the bonds we form with others make life truly meaningful. In the final years of his life, the old veteran Joseph found himself living in peace. Silver, his loyal companion, remained by his side, offering unwavering support. Joseph's relationships with the motorcyclists, Thomas, and the townspeople only grew stronger as time passed. Each day, he took peaceful walks around the town, recounting his memories and cherishing the beauty of life. Joseph had long since left behind the painful memories of war, and he had come to understand the true value of a life filled with peace. No longer haunted by the horrors of his past, he now reveled in the simple pleasures of everyday life. His mornings spent with Silver were a source of comfort, and his conversations with Thomas and the motorcyclists became an integral part of his new reality. The bonds he had formed with his new friends were more meaningful than he had ever imagined. These connections, born from forgiveness, understanding, and shared experiences, filled the empty spaces in his heart. For the first time in years, Joseph felt truly at home. He had once believed that the best part of life was behind him, that his days of camaraderie and belonging had ended. But as time passed, he realized that life still had so much to offer, even in its twilight years. His relationships with the townspeople had blossomed, and he found joy in the kindness they showed him. Thomas, now like a son to him, continued to be a constant presence in his life. The two shared many quiet moments together, enjoying the peace they had both come to appreciate. The motorcyclists, too, had become more than just acquaintances. They had become friends who genuinely respected Joseph and the lessons he had imparted to them. They would often stop by his house, chatting and sharing stories over cups of tea. Their once rough exterior now softened by the friendship they had cultivated with him. Joseph's life was filled with warmth, laughter, and a sense of belonging. He no longer felt the weight of his past. Instead, he embraced the present with gratitude. His bond with Silver was a constant reminder of the loyalty and love that could endure, even in the most challenging of times. Together, they walked through the quiet streets of the town, and Joseph felt at peace, knowing that he had lived a full life. As the seasons changed, Joseph grew older, but his spirit remained strong. The peace he had found in the company of others was the greatest gift he could have ever hoped for. His journey had come full circle, from the lonely veteran haunted by the memories of war to a man surrounded by friends and a newfound sense of family. And in those final moments, as he sat in his favorite chair, Silver resting at his feet, Joseph smiled. He had found what he had been searching for all along: peace, love, and the comfort of true friendship. Life, he realized, had a way of offering second chances, and in his case, it had given him a final chapter filled with everything he needed. As he closed his eyes for the last time, Joseph felt the warmth of the life he had built, and with it, a deep sense of contentment. He had finally found peace, not only within himself, but also in the hearts of those who had become his family.